Well, let's begin with Irving. As it turns out, he's not going anywhere. He'll remain with the Mavericks. Agreed to a 3-year deal that will pay him $126 million. Mavericks went just 5-11 after trading for him last season. They missed the playoffs, but they're focused on putting the right pieces around Irving and Luka Doncic moving forward. They think that's the issue, the other pieces. Fred VanVleet made history. He agreed to a 3-year deal worth $130 million to leave the Raptors for the Rockets. It's the largest deal for any undrafted player ever. VanVleet spent his first 7 years of his career in Toronto, but he turned down a player option for next season. Came off the bench to help the Raptors win the NBA title in 2019. Let's bring in Adrian Wojnarowski now. Woj, what made the Rockets so interested in VanVleet?
Well, Stan, this is an organization that has gone through a real difficult couple seasons of a rebuild. Very young, immature at times, and Fred VanVleet just brings a dynamic that Ime Udoka, their new head coach, desperately wanted. His professionalism, 29 years old, coming off an all-star season. He's going to set the tone now for this Houston organization. A lot of young players for him to mentor. And listen, this is a Rockets team that may not be done in free agency. They're still in pursuit of both Brook Lopez and Dylan Brooks.
What about the Pacers? They keep Tyrese Halliburton. Tell us about that deal.
Just a huge deal for this organization. Tyrese Halliburton, 5 years, could be worth up to $260 million. His agents, Dave Spahn and Aaron Mintz, closed that out tonight with Kevin Pritchard in Indiana. And this is a player who just is everything that the Pacers hoped and more when they traded Domantas Sabonis to Sacramento for him. He's become an all-star in Indiana, one of the best young players in all of the NBA. And not only do they get Halliburton on that extension, they land Bruce Brown in free agency, taking him away from the NBA champion Denver Nuggets.
Meanwhile, the Grizzlies made that splash with the deal for Marcus Smart, and they keep Desmond Bane in that backcourt with him. Tell us about his new contract.
Yeah, Desmond Bane, he gets a 5-year, $207 million max contract on a night that the Grizzlies also agree to a deal with Derrick Rose, who will come in and they certainly think can still help them on the court, but they really think Derrick Rose can help them with Ja Morant, with this young team in the locker room. But Desmond Bane, what a story he's been in this league. Late first-round pick who's become, one of the most dependable shooters in the league, gotten better every year. And now that big three in Memphis of Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and now Desmond Bane, all signed long-term. And picking up Marcus Smart in this offseason, this is going to be an improved and formidable Memphis team.
Yeah, they were already pretty good. Said it before, but I'll say it again. If it's happening in the NBA, Adrian Wojnarowski's on it. Woj, thanks for staying up with us.
Thank you, Stan.
Other big signings across the league. Chris Middleton agrees to a 3-year, $102 million deal with the Bucks. He spent 10 seasons with Milwaukee, but played only 33 games last season due to right knee soreness and wrist injuries. And as we mentioned, 4-time All-Star Draymond Green staying with Golden State. He agreed to a 4-year deal worth $100 million. Green shot a career-best 52.7% from the floor last season. His deal runs concurrent with Steph Curry's deal now, so they keep that core together. Jeremy Grant expected to sign a 5-year, $160 million contract to stay with the Blazers. He'll join Damian Lillard as the only players in Trailblazers history to agree to a deal worth at least $150 million. Kyle Kuzma staying in Washington, D.C. He agrees to a 4-year deal with the Wizards for $102 million. Kuzma averaged a career-high 21.2 points per game last season in D.C. And NBA champion Bruce Brown, as Woj mentioned, headed from Denver to Indiana on a 2-year, $45 million deal with the Pacers. Brown scored the most bench points by any player last postseason. Big contributor for Denver. They're continuing to fine-tune the roster of Brown, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis this offseason. Bobby Marks has a breakdown on the Lakers' moves so far, and he likes what Rob Pelinka's done.
The big winner tonight is the Los Angeles Lakers. They had the option of either to run it back with the same roster or go free agent shopping, and they accomplished both. It certainly starts with Gabe Vincent, the Miami Heat point guard. Vincent, 3 years, $33 million. They also brought back Rui Hachimura, 3 years, $51 million for Hachimura. They got a big wing in Taurean Prince for $4.5 million. And they also brought back Cam Reddish for the veteran minimum exception. The one name to keep an eye on, Austin Reeves, still a restricted free agent. Los Angeles can bring him back for a 4-year, $53 million contract. This Laker team is primed to get back to a Western Conference Finals.
Fans love Reeves. So you got to figure they'll bring him back. Several other free agents found new homes. Jakob Poeltl, 4-year, $80 million deal with the Raptors. Dennis Schroeder also headed to Toronto on a 2-year deal. He'll replace Fred VanVleet after VanVleet left for Houston.
Kevin, on Draymond Green and Damian Lillard.
Plus, what clues are the Sixers sending out on the future of Tyrese Maxey? But we begin with Maxey's current teammate, James Harden, avoided free agency by opting in, and that is a big storyline in that final year of his deal with Philly. The message has been sent that he wants to be traded. Harden signed a 2-year discounted deal last year with the hopes of opting out this summer and getting a max deal. He never got that offer from Daryl Morey and the Sixers, and he is a big storyline here as free agency is underway. Senior NBA reporter Brian Windhorst joining us now live. Windy, what's the market for James Harden right now?
Well, the market is open. Over the last 25 hours, the Sixers have been talking to various teams in the league, trying to identify what teams might have interest in James Harden. But as of now, I think we're still at the 2 teams that we thought immediately after Harden opted into his contract. That would be the LA Clippers, which is where James Harden is from. He has interest in going there and playing alongside Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, going back home. And that is something that the Clippers have a menu of different things they can offer the Sixers. They can offer young players, they can offer expiring contracts, they can offer draft picks. There's a lot of things that can go forward here. And then I think the New York Knicks are sort of lurking. They have expressed their interest. They have a lot of things from draft picks to young players to guys under contract, expiring contracts. So I think the Sixers are going to watch how things develop over the first few hours of free agency. They are not in a hurry. They are in no means desperate. And I think you'll see Daryl Morey show patience as he waits to see how that Harden market develops.
How does that affect the Harden camp here with the timing and Daryl Morey taking his time as you referenced?
Well, obviously there's a hope that James Harden can work with the Sixers, but that's under no obligation. You know, he cannot extend his contract, so there's no contractual advantage. There's no worry about him being traded to a place that he won't extend because nobody can extend him. But there is a desire to try to make something that works because the Sixers may want to get other high-profile players in the future. But they are, the Sixers, remember, 2 years ago with Ben Simmons, Daryl Morey waited 6 months to handle that stalemate and ended up winning that trade and how he acquired James Harden. He is not afraid to wait, but it is important to keep an eye on what happens with Damian Lillard. That is sort of the other shoe that can drop. Seeing how Damian reacts to the moves that the Blazers can make in free agency, whether or not he asks for a trade, could affect what happens with James Harden. Not that he would go to Portland, but it could affect a potential chasing of Lillard by the Sixers and using Harden to get assets that could be used in the potential offer.
All right, keep in mind, Harden's coming off a season where his scoring was down, averaged just 21 points, but his role as a facilitator led the NBA with 11 dimes and 6 rebounds this past season. Wendy, thank you so much for much more. Let's go to Elle.
Yeah, we're going to keep the conversation going on James Harden, but we're going to do it with our NBA analyst, Tim Legler. And we haven't had a chance just to gauge your reaction, Legs, when you heard that James Harden was picking up his option for next year.
Elle, I think it's the best case scenario for the Philadelphia 76ers. I really do. When you look at the other 2 alternatives, one was commit more years and a lot of money to James Harden when he has repeatedly shown that he is not a guy you can count on in the postseason. He is a great regular season player. He has spotty nights in the playoffs, but he has an awful lot of nights that don't allow your team to win because his floor has been so low in certain key spots. So that was one option. Option 2, he opts out and he just goes and signs with somebody else and you get no compensation in return. And that's not a great option because you gave up a lot of capital to get James Harden. So this was the third option here for the Sixers, and that is he opts in and then he requests a trade. It's the best thing that could happen to them because now James Harden will go somewhere else and they can move forward with assets that they can put alongside an MVP in this league and a young emerging star in Tyrese Maxey. And maybe you find pieces that fit better around them. Look, James Harden doesn't have the market value that he once did, but he can still command nice young pieces and future picks to help you stay in a good place and stay competitive in the Eastern Conference.
Any news on Harden's new home? We'll bring it to you first right here as Woj is certainly standing by. But while we've made some jokes about punting on the process for the Sixers, they still have Joel Embiid there, legs. So if you're Daryl Morey, how do you go about putting a championship caliber roster around him?
Well, let's just start with a couple of teams that are out there because they're the two that are prevalent right now in these talks. It's the Knicks and the Clippers. When you look at these two teams, I think in terms of what you would get back in return, the Knicks are much more interesting. Now, clearly, Jalen Brunson's not going to be part of that package, but when you look at a guy like Emmanuel Quickley, you look at an Obi Toppin, you look at potentially even an R.J. Barrett, who, by the way, is only 23 years old. And even in their elimination series a year ago against the Cavaliers, against the Heat, he had 4 20-point games in that series where he shot 50%. Those are the kind of numbers Philly would have killed James Harden to produce. So I think the best basketball is ahead for R.J. Barrett. So when you look at the young talent, that to me is much more attractive in what the Knicks could return than the Clippers. And even future draft picks, the Knicks are in a better position to get future first-round picks, which obviously that's what you'd be looking for. Now, look, this is the early stages of this. There'll be some other teams could get involved. What Brian Windhorst just said is so intriguing because I know people in Philadelphia would be beside themselves if they could get Damian Lillard, but that might be just a pipe dream. Let's see where all this goes. But the two teams out there right now, Knicks, Clippers, I think the Knicks have a more attractive package in what you get in return.
Legs, 6 minutes into free agency being open, and we do have some breaking news for you here on SportsCenter. Draymond Green has agreed with the Warriors, 4 years, $100 million. He'll be returning. This is not exactly surprising. This is something that Woj and the rest of our pundits have been saying they were heading for. Draymond's been very, very open about this process and how communicative he's been with the Warriors throughout this process as well. Just interested to gauge, Legs, how you feel about this deal and then moving forward with Draymond.
This is great news for the Warriors, and we expected Draymond to be back. Didn't know it was going to get done this quickly. And look, he's earned every single dime of that $100 million and what he has meant to that organization in the time he's been there. I think the championship window is still open for the Warriors because Steph Curry hasn't shown any precipitous decline. As long as Steph Curry is playing at the level he did a year ago, this team is still in the hunt. Now, they've got some things they've got to figure out because they lost some key guys. I mean, Jordan Poole, for all his struggles in the postseason, he's a 20-point-per-game scorer in the regular season you've got to replace. Most likely, they're going to lose Dante DiVincenzo. He was great for them in the postseason and down the stretch of the regular season. You didn't get that boost out of Kuminga and Moody. Wiseman's not even in the organization anymore. So they've got some things to figure out here in terms of their depth. But now they've got Chris Paul in-house. You've got Steph Curry on an elite level. And this was the key. You've got to get Draymond Green back to be taken seriously as a championship contender in the West. And that's what this does. It solidifies their organization. And now they've got to go find depth. And they've got to get, I think, bigger and more athletic on the wing.